Greetings to you, Crocoduck Army. I hope you're having a fantastic indictment week, wherever you are. Most of you know by now that the investigation into the Trump campaign's collusion with Russia is heating up. Former campaign manager Paul Manafort was indicted, as well as his business partner Rick Gates. Paul Manafort is, to put it mildly, a snake, but we already knew this. He did consulting work for President Viktor Yanukovych in Ukraine for years, until Ukrainians figured out Yanukovych was looting the country. After he was removed from power in 2014, they saw the opulent lifestyle he was living in his lavish refurbished mansion in one of the poorest countries in Europe, courtesy of Russian money. Then, when Yanukovych was removed and fled to Moscow, Russia invaded and took over parts of eastern Ukraine at the cost of several thousand lives, a war that's currently in a long-term but very shaky ceasefire. It appears that Manafort then laundered that money and brought it to the U.S. It seems Manafort used the countries of Cyprus and St. Vincent and the Grenadines, where they have lax banking laws, to funnel the money back to the U.S., and promptly put that into real estate and high-end consumer goods that could store the wealth without having to keep it in cash. It also seems he didn't pay taxes on that money. Needless to say, Paul Manafort is in big trouble, and unless he decides to cooperate to get bigger fish in the Trump administration, he's probably going to prison for a long time. You may be thinking, well, Zonstar, won't Trump just pardon him like that bigoted sheriff in Arizona, Joe Arpaio? Well, he could, but the conflict of interest at this point would make him look even more guilty, and it appears that state charges could be pending in New York against him as well. Trump can't save him from those. As close as Manafort is to Trump, though, the most unexpected news of the day and the most worrisome if you're a bloated, angry president isn't about Manafort. It's that we just found out that former advisor George Papadopoulos was arrested over 3 months ago. George has already pled guilty in a plea deal, which means he's been helping the prosecution to get the bigger fish beyond Manafort. George was first questioned about 8 months ago and told investigators several things that were clearly lies. He then deleted his Facebook account and changed his phone number right after the interview. After his arrest, it seems likely that he was wearing a wire while talking to his associates in the Trump inner circle for the last few months. It's hard to say what or whom they got information on. Some are speculating that it's Sessions, which would be fantastic, but it's impossible to know yet. When you read the very detailed account of what George was up to, you'll get a better idea of what was going on in the Trump campaign. There was a part of the documentation that even quoted an email indicating that they needed to be careful to not tip anyone off that Trump is involved, but I'll come back to that in the end. Definitely no collusion though, right, Donald? Trump is becoming more unglued by the day, finishing a rant over the weekend with an all-caps "do something." He's getting quite frantic, and he's going after his favorite targets, Obama and Hillary, over and over again. It's a little sad, but mostly hilarious watching a grown man act like such a baby. When your approval ratings are in the 30s, senators from your own party are calling the White House an adult daycare, and people just aren't buying those excuses anymore outside of your diehard supporters. It makes for a cranky Donald. He still has his advocates, though. Fox News on the day of the indictments had a recurring story about the proper placement of cheese on a cheeseburger emoji. Their top website story all day Saturday was about a D.C. area church that wanted to remove a plaque about George Washington because of slavery references, because surely that's more important than impending indictments of the president's inner circle. That's a misdirection play straight out of the conservative playbook. Trump fans are trying a lot of redirection tactics, with the Mueller investigation making obvious progress now. They're talking a lot about uranium these days. There was a deal in which Russia bought some uranium that they say was suspicious, and that they say Hillary was responsible for. The conspiracy came up last year and was entirely debunked not only by Snopes when memes were created around it, but by various news outlets. Of course, Trump fans believe anything that's not skewering Hillary must be fake news. Use some of the links in the info bar to dismiss them. It's not worth having to explain repeatedly. I'll leave you with one last tidbit. The email that indicted campaign official Rick Gates sent about a requested meeting with Russian officials about getting dirt on Hillary. We need someone to communicate that DT, Donald Trump, is not doing these trips. It should be someone low-level in the campaign, so as not to send any signal. Getting nervous yet, Trumpelstiltskin? You should be.